Says it's their responsibility to hold Syrian forces to the terms of a deal agreed last year meant to reduce the violence. But despite that deal, the fighting in and around Idlib has been intensifying, with government forces making major territorial gains. Bernard Smith reports.
Idlib in northern Syria. Idlib in northern Syria is supposed to be one of 4 so-called de-escalation zones set up to reduce fighting. If anything, battles between government and opposition forces are intensifying. Russia, Turkey and Iran agreed last year to be guarantors of ceasefires in those mainly opposition-held areas. Now, the Turkish government says the Syrian regime is claiming to attack what it calls al-Nusra terrorists while targeting the so-called moderate opposition.
95% of the violations are carried out by the regime or the groups who back the regime. Why? Is the aim to exploit this process to completely wipe out the moderate opposition and the civilians? Iran and Russia should meet their obligations as guarantors and stop the regime. This is not about simple airstrikes near the border. The regime is advancing toward the inside of Idlib. So here the intention is different.
But the Syrian government's Russian allies disagree, saying recent drone attacks on its air and naval bases in Syria were launched by opposition groups from Idlib. Russia's defense ministry released photos it said was of a downed drone. In a statement, Russia says data for the attacks could only have been obtained from one of the countries that possesses know-how in satellite navigation.
If the
Kremlin knows the perpetrators, Russia will increase the shelling and bombardments against them. But if the attack represents a message from those who are not happy with the Russians and want to negotiate with them, then Russia can slightly change its stance and put some pressure on Damascus regarding active groups in around Latakia.
The Syrian army's offensive around Idlib is forcing thousands of civilians to flee towards the border with Turkey. Turkey's foreign ministry has summoned both the Russian and Iranian ambassadors to lodge a formal complaint about what's happening there. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera.